Chapter 1. The whisper of the fountain. Late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the cobblestone streets of Ashburn, a village nestled in the heart of the English countryside, where time seemed to have paused a century ago. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate patent leather shoes clicking rhythmically, stepped off the train onto the quaint platform. His moustache, meticulously waxed, twitched slightly as he surveyed the scene. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of damp earth and blooming roses, but there was something else, a faint undercurrent of unease that Poirot's keen senses detected at once. He had come at the behest of Lady Beatrice Harrow, an old friend whose letters were usually filled with cheerful anecdotes, but whose latest missive had been laced with urgency. Mon cher Poirot, she had written, the village is troubled by a most peculiar matter concerning our ancient fountain. It flows again, after decades of silence, and strange messages have appeared upon its stone. I implore you to lend us your little grey cells. Poirot, ever intrigued by the unusual, had accepted the invitation without hesitation, accompanied by his loyal friend, Captain Arthur Hastings. As they walked toward the village square, Hastings, ever the enthusiast, remarked, "Charming place, Poirot. All these ivy-covered cottages and flower baskets. Hard to imagine anything sinister here." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Ah, Hastings, mon ami, it is in such charming places that the most curious secrets hide. The picturesque, it is often a mask for the unexpected." The village square was dominated by the fountain in question, a weathered stone structure adorned with moss and intricate carvings of mythical figures. Its basin, long dry, now shimmered with water, a gentle trickle echoing in the stillness. A small crowd of villagers had gathered, their whispers ceasing as Poirot approached. Lady Beatrice, a stately woman in her 60s with silver hair and a commanding presence, hurried forward. "Monsieur Poirot, thank heaven you've come," she exclaimed, clasping his gloved hand. "This fountain, it's been dry since before I was born, and now it flows as if by magic. And these carvings," she gestured to the rim, where fresh etchings marred the ancient stone, a crescent moon entwined with thorns, and the words Quod lotet, Revelobiter, Latin for what is hidden shall be revealed. Poirot adjusted his pince-nez and leaned closer, his fingers tracing the carvings with precision. "Most curious," he murmured. "The work is recent, non. The edges are sharp, unweathered. And the water, how does it flow after so many years?" Lady Beatrice shook her head. "No one knows. The groundskeeper, Silas Wren, claims he found it like this 3 days ago. The villagers are unnerved. Some call it an omen." Hastings frowned. "An omen? Surely it's just someone playing a prank." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "A prank, Hastings, perhaps. But a prank with purpose leaves clues, and clues, they speak to Hercule Poirot." Lady Beatrice introduced them to key figures in the crowd. Reverend Thomas, the vicar, was a wiry man with darting eyes, clutching a worn Bible as if it were a shield. "The fountain's awakening is unsettling," he admitted, his voice low. "It feels unholy." Beside him stood Miss Evelyn Grey, a local historian with sharp features and a guarded demeanour, who offered a tight smile. "It's merely a historical curiosity," she said dismissively. "The fountain was built by the Ashford family in the 18th century. Nothing more." Poirot noted her evasiveness, but said nothing, turning instead to Silas Wren, the groundskeeper. Wren was a burly man with weathered hands and a scowl that seemed permanently etched. "I don't know how it started flowing," he grunted. "I just tend the grounds." His eyes flickered toward the fountain, betraying a hint of unease. As the crowd dispersed, Poirot knelt by the fountain, his gloved fingers brushing the damp stone. Hastings, ever impatient, asked, "What are you looking for, Poirot?" "Order and method, Hastings," Poirot replied. "The fountain, it is the heart of this mystery. Why does it flow now? Who carved these words? And why this Latin phrase, so deliberate, so precise?" His gaze fell on a small, folded piece of paper tucked beneath a loose stone at the fountain's base. With care, he extracted it, unfolding a yellowed note bearing a single line in elegant script. "Seek the guardian, where shadows fall." Poirot's eyes sparkled. Voila, a clue. This note, it is no accident. Someone wishes us to look deeper. Lady Beatrice gasped. But who would leave such a thing? And what does it mean? Poirot tucked the note into his pocket. That, madame, is what we shall discover. The guardian, the shadows, these are pieces of the puzzle. But first, I must observe the village, its people, their secrets. As dusk settled, the group retired to Lady Beatrice's manor for tea. The conversation turned to the Ashford family, whose grand estate loomed on the village outskirts, now occupied by the reclusive Clarence Ashford. "He rarely leaves the estate," Lady Beatrice confided. "Some say he's haunted by the family's past. They vanished, you know, decades ago, under mysterious circumstances." Hastings raised an eyebrow. "Vanished. Sounds like a case for you, Poirot." "Indeed," Poirot mused, sipping his tisane. "The fountain, the note, the carvings, they are threads in a tapestry. But what picture do they form? That is the question." As they left the manor, Poirot paused to glance back at the fountain, now illuminated by moonlight. The water's whisper seemed to carry a warning, and the crescent moon carving gleamed faintly. "Hastings," he said softly, "this village, it holds a secret, and the fountain is its voice. We must listen carefully." The chapter closed with Poirot's resolve firm, his little grey cells already at work, unravelling the enigma of the forgotten fountain and the shadows it cast over ASHBOURNE. Chapter 2. Shadows of the past morning. Sun-draped Ashburn in a golden veil, its rays glinting off the cobblestones and casting intricate patterns through the leaves. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted just so, stood before the ancient fountain in the village square, its soft trickle a curious anomaly after decades of silence. The cryptic carving, quod lotet, revelobiter, etched into the stone, seemed to mock the morning's calm, while the note from the previous day, "Seek the guardian where shadows fall," lay folded in Poirot's pocket, a silent challenge. Captain Arthur Hastings, adjusting his tie with a touch of impatience, broke the silence. "It's just a fountain, Poirot, probably some local lad playing a prank." "You're making a mountain out of a molehill." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, you see a fountain. I see a stage where secrets perform there. Drama. The fountain has been silent 4 generations, yet now it speaks. We must learn its history to understand its voice." Their first stop was the vicarage, a quaint building with ivy-clad walls and a faint scent of old books and beeswax. Lady Beatrice Harrow had arranged a meeting with Miss Evelyn Gray, the village historian, whose knowledge of Ashburn's past was reputedly unmatched. Reverend Thomas greeted them at the door, his wiry frame tense, his fingers fidgeting with a silver cross pendant. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, I trust you slept well?" he asked, his voice betraying a nervous quiver. "Perfectly, merci," Poirot replied, his sharp eyes scanning the room's modest furnishings, a bookshelf, a worn armchair, cabinet stuffed with papers. "But I am more interested in the sleep of this village, disturbed by the fountain's sudden awakening." Miss Gray arrived promptly, her sharp features framed by a tightly pinned bun. She carried a leather-bound notebook, her demeanour cool and professional. "Lady Beatrice says you're investigating the fountain," she said. Her tone clipped. "It's a relic of the Ashford family, built in 1763 to flaunt their wealth. It dried up when the family fell into ruin in the 1890s. That's all there is to it." Poirot tilted his head, studying her guarded expression. "And yet, mademoiselle, it flows again, adorned with fresh carvings and mysterious notes. Surely, you, as historian, have theories about its revival." Miss Gray's lips thinned, her fingers tightening on her notebook. The Ashfords were a troubled lot. Bankruptcy, scandal, disappearance, take your pick. The fountain's just a piece of their legacy, nothing more. Her words were firm, but her eyes flickered with something Poirot could not yet name. He turned to the vicar. "Reverend, have you any records of the Ashfords? Letters, diaries, perhaps photographs?" Reverend Thomas hesitated, then gestured to a dusty cabinet in the corner. "There are some old parish records. I haven't looked closely, I'm afraid." Poirot, with his characteristic methodical precision, sifted through the files, his gloved fingers pausing on a faded photograph tucked between yellowed pages. It depicted a grand family, presumably the Ashfords, standing before the fountain. In its prime, their faces solemn. A young girl in the centre clutched a locket, her wide eyes hauntingly familiar. Poirot's brow furrowed as he pocketed the photograph for later study. "Curio," he murmured. "This locket, it may hold a key to our mystery." That evening, Lady Beatrice hosted a village gathering at her manor, a sprawling estate with high ceilings and flickering chandeliers. The drawing room buzzed with villagers, their conversations orbiting the fountain's enigma. Poirot, sipping his tisane, observed the crowd with hawk-like precision. Among them was Clarence Ashford, the current owner of the Ashford estate, a gaunt man in his 50s with deep-set eyes and a perpetual frown. He stood by the fireplace, swirling a glass of brandy. "The fountain's nonsense," he declared loudly to a group of locals. "A broken pipe, nothing more. You lot love your superstitions." Poirot approached, his smile polite but probing. "Monsieur Ashford, you dismiss the fountain's revival, yet it flows after decades of silence, as the heir to its creators. Does this not intrigue you?" Clarence's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his glass. "I'm no heir to their folly. The Ashfords left me debts and a crumbling estate. I rebuilt what I could. The fountain's a relic, let it be." His tone was sharp, almost defensive, and Poirot noted it carefully. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion across the room. Silas Wren, the burly groundskeeper, faced off with Henry Baxter, a ruddy-faced farmer with a booming voice. "You know something, Wren," Baxter shouted, jabbing a finger. "You've been poking around that fountain for years, skulking about. What are you hiding?" Wren's fists clenched, his scowl deepening. "Mind your own business, Baxter. I keep the grounds, that's all." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him, leaving a ripple of whispers among the guests. Poirot's gaze followed Wren's retreat, his mind cataloguing the exchange. "Hastings," he said softly, "there is bad blood here, and it flows as freely as the fountain. Monsieur Wren, he knows more than he admits." As the evening wore on, Poirot approached Miss Grey, who stood alone by a window overlooking the darkened gardens. "Mademoiselle, you mentioned the Ashfords' disappearance. Were there rumours of a lost heir, perhaps?" Her eyes widened briefly before she masked her surprise. "Old gossip," she said quickly. "Some claimed a child survived, sent away to avoid scandal. But it's unproven, just village tales." She excused herself abruptly, leaving Poirot to ponder her reticence. As the guests dispersed, Poirot and Hastings strolled back to the village square under a starlit sky. The fountain's trickle seemed louder in the quiet, its carvings glinting faintly in the moonlight. Poirot paused, his eyes narrowing as he studied the photograph again. "Hastings, la petite fille with the locket, her face. It resembles someone. We have met today. But who?" Hastings scratched his head, ever the skeptic. "You're seeing connections everywhere, Poirot. It's just an old photo." "Nong, nong," Poirot insisted, his voice firm. "The past casts shadows on the present. The Ashfords, the fountain, the notes, they are linked. This locket, it is a key. I am certain." He tucked the photograph away, his little grey cells already weaving the threads of the mystery. Back at their lodgings, Poirot sat by a flickering lamp, polishing his moustache with a thoughtful air. The photograph, the carvings, the notes, cryptic words, "Seek the guardian, where shadows fall," formed a tapestry of intrigue. The fountain, silent for generations, had found its voice, and Hercule Poirot was determined to understand its song, no matter how deeply the shadows of the past concealed it. Chapter 3. The enigmatic carving morning mist draped Ashburn in a ghostly shroud, softening the edges of the village square and lending an ethereal quality to the ancient fountain at its heart. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted precisely, stood before the fountain, its gentle trickle a persistent murmur in the stillness of dawn. The carvings on its rimmed quodlotet, revolobiter, and a crescent moon entwined with thorns glinted faintly in the early light, their sharp edges betraying recent craftsmanship. Poirot's gloved fingers traced the symbols with meticulous care, his sharp eyes narrowing as he memorized every curve and line. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings stifled a yawn, his breath forming small clouds in the chilly air. "Poirot, it's barely 7 o'clock," Hastings grumbled, pulling his coat tighter. "Couldn't this wait until after a proper breakfast? A man needs his tea and toast." "Non, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice crisp as the morning air. "The early light, it reveals what shadows conceal. These carvings, they are not mere decoration, they are a message, a challenge." And Hercule Poirot, he accepts all challenges. He knelt closer, his pince-nez catching the faint sunlight as he studied the Latin phrase, quodlotet, revolobiter. What is hidden shall be revealed, a promise, perhaps, or a warning. And this crescent moon with thorns, it is no idle design. It speaks of secrecy, of something guarded with ferocity. Hastings peered over Poirot's shoulder, his brow furrowed. "Looks like something out of a Gothic novel, if you ask me. Could it be tied to some local legend? Maybe Miss Grey knows more than she's letting on." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Piepence, Hastings. Mademoiselle Grey's reticence yesterday. It was most curious, but first, we must understand the fountain itself, its sudden flow, these carvings. The notice seek the guardian, where shadows fall, they form a puzzle. And puzzles, they yield to the order and method of Hercule Poirot." Their reverie was interrupted by the hurried approach of Lady Beatrice Harrow, her silver hair slightly askew, and her face pale with concern. "Monsieur Poirot, thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed, clutching a shawl around her shoulders. "I was just coming to fetch you. Miss Grey has agreed to meet us at the village hall to discuss the fountain's history. She's brought some old documents she thinks might help." "Excellent," Poirot said, straightening with a flourish. "Let us go, Hastings. The past, it holds the key to the present, and we must unlock it." The village hall was a modest structure with creaking floorboards and a faint musty smell of aged paper. Miss Evelyn Grey stood at a long table, surrounded by yellowed manuscripts, maps, and leather-bound ledgers. Her sharp features were set in a mask of professionalism, but her eyes flickered with unease as Poirot and Hastings entered. "Lady Beatrice says you're investigating the fountain," she said, her tone clipped. "These are records of the Ashford family, who built it in 1763 to celebrate a prosperous trade deal. When they vanished in the 1890s, the fountain dried up. That's the extent of it." Poirot's gaze sharpened, catching the slight tension in her posture. "And yet, mademoiselle, it flows again, adorned with fresh carvings and mysterious notes. Surely you, as historian, have theories about its revival. Perhaps a tale of treasure or tragedy." Miss Grey's lips thinned, her fingers tightening on her notebook. "It's folklore, nothing more. The Ashfords were plagued by bankruptcy, scandal, even whispers of murder. Villagers love their stories, curses, hidden treasure, lost heirs, but there's no evidence. As for the fountain's flow, it's likely a mechanical quirk." Her nonchalance seemed forced, and Poirot noted it with interest. He pored over the documents, his gloved fingers pausing on a detailed sketch of the fountain's base, annotated with cryptic symbols. 1. A crescent moon entwined with thorns, matched the carving perfectly. "This symbol," he said, holding up the sketch, "it appears in your records. What is its meaning?" Miss Grey hesitated, her eyes darting to the sketch. "It's an old family crest, I believe. Nothing significant." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying her unease. "Nong, nong," Poirot said softly, his eyes gleaming. In a mystery such as this, nothing is without significance. He exchanged a glance with Hastings, who nodded, sensing the historian's discomfort. Their discussion was cut short by a commotion outside. A young boy, no older than 12, burst into the hall, breathless and wide-eyed. "The fountain, sir. Someone smashed it." Poirot and Hastings followed Lady Beatrice and Miss Grey to the square, where a small crowd had gathered, murmuring. In shock, the fountain's rim was marred by fresh damage. A section of the crescent moon carving had been chipped away, and the Latin phrase was partially defaced, the word revelobiter reduced to a jagged scar. Silas Wren, the groundskeeper, stood nearby, his burly frame tense, clutching a rake as if it were a weapon. "Vandals," he growled, his voice thick with anger. "I found it like this at dawn." Poirot knelt by the fountain, his gloved fingers tracing the jagged edges of the damage. The chips were deliberate, aimed at the thorns in the crescent moon symbol, as if someone sought to erase its meaning. "This is no random act," he murmured. "Someone fears the fountain's message, and wishes to silence it. But why?" Hastings scanned the crowd, his eyes narrowing. "Could be someone from last night's gathering." That row between Wren and Baxter was heated. "Maybe Baxter took a hammer to it." Hastings, Poirot agreed. "But we must not assume. The little grey cells. They tell me this act is connected to our clues: the note, the photograph, the locket." He turned to Wren, his tone measured. "Monsieur, you were here at dawn. Did you see anyone near the fountain?" Wren's scowl deepened, his eyes darting to the fountain. "No one. I check the grounds every morning. Found it like this, that's all." His voice was gruff, but a flicker of unease crossed his face. Unnoticed by all but Poirot, Lady Beatrice wrung her hands, her voice trembling. "This is dreadful. First the carvings, now this. What's happening to our village, Monsieur Poirot?" Poirot stood, brushing dust from his gloves with deliberate care. "What is happening, madame, is that someone fears the fountain's secrets. This vandalism, it is a desperate act to hide what is hidden, but Hercule Poirot, he does not allow secrets to remain buried." As the villagers dispersed, muttering among themselves, Poirot lingered by the fountain, his mind racing. The photograph from the vicarage, with the girl clutching a locket, nagged at him. The crescent moon symbol in Miss Grey's documents matched the carving, suggesting a deeper connection to the Ashford family. The vandalism, deliberate, precise, pointed to someone with knowledge of the fountain's significance, someone desperate to keep it buried. "Hastings," Poirot said as they walked back to their lodgings, "we must speak again with Mademoiselle Grey. Her knowledge, it is incomplete, or she conceals it. And Monsieur Wren, his anger, it hides something. We must watch him closely." Hastings nodded, though his expression remained skeptical. "You think they're all in on it? Seems a bit much for a village this size, Poirot." "Mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with determination. "In a village such as this, every heart holds a secret, and the fountain, it is their confessor. We must listen to its whispers, for they will lead us to the truth." That night, as Poirot sat by a flickering lamp, he unfolded the note once more. "Seek the guardian where shadows fall." The defaced carving, the Ashford photograph, Miss Grey's evasiveness, Wren's defensiveness, all were threads in a tapestry of intrigue. The fountain's sudden flow was no accident, and the vandalism was a cry of fear from someone desperate to keep its secrets submerged. Poirot's little grey cells hummed with anticipation, ready to unravel the enigma that lay beneath Ashburn's tranquil surface. Chapter 4. The vicar's confession's morning sun fought valiantly through a thick veil of clouds, casting a muted, almost mournful light over Ashburn's village square. The ancient fountain stood at its centre, its once pristine carvings now marred by the jagged scars of vandalism. Its gentle trickle, persistent and unyielding, seemed to mock the silence of the village, whispering secrets that Hercule Poirot was determined to uncover. "Poirot," His Homburg hat tilted with precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming, despite the damp cobblestones, paced slowly around the fountain, his sharp eyes lingering on the defaced crescent moon and the fractured Latin phrase quod lotet revelobiter. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever his loyal companion, adjusted his scarf against the morning chill, his expression a mix of curiosity and mild exasperation. "Poirot, you've been staring at that fountain for ages," Hastings sighed, his voice tinged with impatience. "What are you hoping to find now?" Another note tucked in the cracks. "Clues, mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with a faint, knowing smile. "The fountain, it speaks, but its voice is obscured by fear and deception. The vandalism, it was no act of chance, it was a cry of desperation. We must seek those who fear its secrets, and they are closer than we think." Their conversation was interrupted by the hurried approach of Reverend Thomas, the vicar, his wiry frame hunched and his eyes darting nervously. He clutched his worn Bible tightly, as if it were an anchor in a storm of uncertainty. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "may I speak with you privately? There is something I must confess, something that weighs heavily on my conscience." Poirot's gaze sharpened, sensing the gravity of the vicar's words. "Of course, Reverend. Let us adjourn to the vicarage, where we may speak freely. Hastings, you will accompany us." The vicarage was, as Poirot remembered, a modest haven of ivy-clad walls, filled with the comforting scent of old books and polished wood. Reverend Thomas led them to a small study, its shelves groaning under the weight of dusty tomes and parish records. He closed the door with trembling hands and sank into a worn armchair, his face etched with guilt. "I should have spoken sooner," he began, his voice quivering. "5 years ago, a stranger came to Ashburn, asking about the fountain. He was unsettling, with eyes that seemed to pierce through you. He spoke of the Ashford family and a secret tied to the fountain, a treasure, he called it, guarded by a keeper. He was insistent, almost frantic." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with interest. "And this stranger, Reverend, what did he leave behind?" The vicar hesitated, his fingers fumbling with his cross pendant. Then, with a shaky breath, he rose and moved to a locked drawer in his desk. Producing a small key, he opened it to reveal a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age, and its cover worn from years of secrecy. "He left this," the vicar said, passing it to Poirot with trembling hands. "I hid it, fearing what it might stir up. The village was peaceful then, and I didn't want to invite trouble." Poirot opened the journal with the care of an archaeologist uncovering a relic. Its pages, written in a precise, elegant hand, detailed the fountain's construction in 1763 by the Ashford family. Sketches of the crescent moon symbol, entwined with thorns, appeared frequently, alongside cryptic references to a guardian and the hidden vault. One passage stood out, its ink still bold despite the years. "The keeper holds the key where shadows fall, beneath the water's heart." Poirot closed the journal, his racing with possibilities. "This, Reverend, is most significant. Why did you not mention this before?" Reverend Thomas's face flushed with guilt, his eyes fixed on the floor. "I was afraid, Monsieur Poirot. The stranger warned me to keep silent, said the fountain's secret could ruin lives. When it began to flow again, I thought perhaps it was a sign to speak, to unburden myself." Hastings, who had been listening intently, frowned. "A treasure, Poirot, sounds like a tall tale to me. But this journal, could it point to something real, like that locket in the photograph?" "Oui, Hastings," Poirot said, tucking the journal into his coat with care. "It points to truth, but truth, obscured by fear and time. We must learn more of this keeper and the shadows they inhabit." Their discussion was cut short by a commotion outside. Henry Baxter, the ruddy-faced farmer from the previous night's gathering, stormed into the vicarage, his boots caked with mud and his voice booming with indignation. "Reverend, you've got to do something about that cursed fountain." He shouted, jabbing a finger. "It's stirring up trouble. And now there's talk of a missing artifact, some silver thing from the church. You're supposed to keep these things safe." Poirot's eyes narrowed. His interest piqued. "An artifact, Monsieur Baxter? Pray, elaborate." Baxter's face reddened further. His hands clenched into fists. "A silver medallion, kept in the church 4 generations. Said to be tied to the Ashfords and that blasted fountain. It's gone missing, and folk are saying it's connected to the vandalism. Someone's up to no good." Reverend Thomas paled, his hands trembling. "The medallion, I hadn't checked the reliquary in weeks. It was a gift from the Ashfords, engraved with their crest a crescent moon, like the carving, Poirot's mind word, connecting the medallion to the journal's cryptic words. This medallion, it is no mere trinket. It may be the key the journal speaks of. Reverend, show us where it was kept." They followed the vicar to the church, a stone building adjacent to the vicarage, its stained glass windows casting colourful patterns on the floor. Inside, a small reliquary stood empty, its lock intact, but the medallion gone. Poirot examined the scene with meticulous care, noting the absence of forced entry. "The thief, they knew exactly where to look," he murmured. "This was no impulse, it was planned." Baxter, still fuming, pointed a finger at the vicar. "You're supposed to guard these things, Thomas. If that fountain's stirring up trouble, it's on you for keeping quiet all these years." The vicar flinched, his shoulders sagging. Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "Monsieur Baxter, your anger, it is understandable, but accusations, they cloud the truth. Tell me, have you seen anyone near the fountain or the church recently?" Baxter hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "That Wren fellow's always skulking about, poking at that fountain. Wouldn't surprise me if he's involved. He's got a shifty look about him." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Merci, we shall investigate all possibilities." As they left the church, the fountain's trickle seemed louder in the quiet square, its defaced carvings a stark reminder of the village's unrest. Poirot turned to Hastings, his voice low. "The journal, the medallion, the vandalism, they are threads in a tapestry. Hastings, the keeper mentioned in the journal, they are close, and they fear discovery." Hastings scratched his head, his skepticism evident. "You think Wren's the keeper? Or maybe Miss Gracie's been cagey about the Ashfords from the start." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with determination. "But we must not leap to conclusions. The little grey cells, they tell me the fountain holds more secrets, and the medallion's theft is no coincidence. We must find it, and the one who guards it." As they returned to their lodgings, Poirot clutched the journal, its weight a promise of answers yet to come. The vicar's confession had opened a door to the past, and the missing medallion was a new piece in the puzzle. The fountain, with its cryptic carvings and hidden truths, was calling louder than ever, and Hercule Poirot was determined to answer its call, no matter how deeply the shadows of Ashburn concealed it. Chapter 5. The groundskeeper's secret afternoon sky over Ashburn hung heavy with brooding clouds, casting a sombre pall over the village square where the ancient fountain stood as a silent sentinel, its gentle trickle, persistent despite the vandalism that scarred its carvings, seemed to whisper secrets that only Hercule Poirot could hope to unravel. Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted with impeccable precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the damp cobblestones, studied the fountain's defaced rim, his sharp eyes lingering on the chipped crescent moon and the fractured Latin phrase quod lotet, revelobiter, the cryptic notice seek the guardian, where shadows fall, the journal's mention of a keeper, the stolen medallion, and the photograph of the Ashford girl with her locket wove a complex tapestry in his mind. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever his loyal companion, shifted impatiently at his side, his breath visible in the cool air. "Poirot, we've been over this fountain a dozen times," Hastings said, his voice tinged with frustration as he adjusted his scarf. "What are we missing? That journal's got you all worked up, but it's just old scribbles and sketches. Surely there's a simpler explanation. Non, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with a faint, knowing smile. The journal, it is a map to the truth, and the fountain, it is the compass that guides us. But we must question those who know its secrets. Monsieur Silas Wren, the groundskeeper, he's too closely tied to this fountain to be innocent of its mysteries. Their target was Silas Wren, the burly groundskeeper whose defensive demeanour at the fountain's vandalism and his heated exchange with Henry Baxter had piqued Poirot's interest. They found him near the village green, raking leaves with a vigour that seemed more angry than diligent, his weathered face set in a permanent scowl. His eyes narrowed under a worn cap as Poirot approached, his hands tightening on the rake. "What do you want, monsieur?" Wren grunted, leaning on his tool like a barrier. "I've got work to do, and I don't need nosy foreigners poking about." Poirot's gaze was steady, his tone polite but probing, like a surgeon's scalpel. "Monsieur Wren, you were the guardian of this fountain, non? You tend its grounds, you know its every stone, yet you claim no knowledge of its sudden flow or the carvings that appeared. I find this most curious." Wren's jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening on the rake's handle. "I told you before, I just found it like that. Pipes must have unclogged themselves. I don't meddle in old stories about Ashfords or curses." His voice was gruff, but a flicker of unease crossed his face. "Stories," Poirot said, raising an eyebrow, "such as those of the Ashfords' lost treasure, perhaps? Or the medallion stolen from the church, engraved with a crescent moon like the fountain's carving. You were quick to call the vandalism the work of vandals, yet you seem to know this fountain's secrets well." Wren's eyes flickered with something fear, perhaps, or recognition before he turned away, resuming his raking with unnecessary force. "Don't know nothing about that medallion. Leave me be, or you'll regret it." The threat hung in the air, but Poirot noted the tremor in Wren's hands, betraying his bravado. Hastings leaned closer to Poirot, whispering, "He's hiding something, all right. Did you see that look? He's as nervous as a cat." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot murmured, his eyes never leaving Wren. "Monsieur Wren, he knows more than he admits. We must observe him when he believes himself unwatched. Tonight, we shall watch the fountain." That evening, under a moonless sky that cloaked Ashburn in darkness, Poirot and Hastings positioned themselves behind a dense hedge near the fountain, their breaths hushed in the still night. The village was silent, save for the fountain's soft trickle, which seemed louder, almost insistent, in the absence of light. Poirot's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned the square, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. "Patience, Hastings," he whispered, "the guilty. They move when they think no one watches. We shall see what Monsieur Wren hides." At 11:30, a figure emerged from the shadow. Silas Wren, carrying a small lantern that cast a dim glow and a satchel slung over his shoulder. He approached the fountain, glancing around furtively before kneeling at its base. With practiced movements, he pried open a hidden panel in the stone, revealing a small compartment. Poirot's heart quickened as Wren reached inside, but a twig snapped under Hastings' foot, the sound sharp in the quiet night. Wren's head whipped around, his lantern swinging wildly. "Who's there?" Wren growled, his voice thick with alarm. He slammed the panel shut and bolted into the darkness, his satchel abandoned in his haste. Poirot darted forward, his agility belying his fastidious appearance. "Quickly, Hastings," he urged, kneeling by the fountain. The satchel lay open, its contents spilled on the cobblestones, a small trowel, a coil of rope, and, most intriguingly, a silver locket engraved with a crescent moon entwined with thorns. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he lifted it, its chain glinting faintly in the lantern's light. He opened it to reveal a portrait of a young woman, her face hauntingly familiar, the same as the girl in the Ashford photograph from the vicarage. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his voice reverent. "This locket, it is the one from the photograph. But who is she, and why does Wren guard it so fiercely?" Hastings peered over his shoulder, his voice hushed with excitement. "That's no coincidence, Poirot. Wren's up to his neck in this. Could he be the keeper the journal mentioned?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, pocketing the locket with care, "but we must not assume. The locket, it ties the past to the present, and Wren, he's but one thread in this tapestry." They examined the hidden compartment, finding only damp stone, and traces of rust, suggesting it had been used before. Poirot closed the panel, his mind racing. The fountain, it holds more than water, it holds secrets. Wren's actions, they confirm he protects something, but for whom? And why flee at the first sign of discovery? As they returned to their lodgings, the village clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the quiet streets. Poirot sat by a flickering lamp, the locket and journal before him, their secrets intertwined. The journal's passage, "The keeper holds the key where shadows fall, beneath the water's heart," resonated with new meaning. The locket's portrait, identical to the photographs, suggested a living connection to the Ashfords, but Wren's role remained a puzzle. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low with determination, "tomorrow, we must confront Monsieur Wren again. His flight, it betrays guilt, but also fear. And this locket, it is a key, but to what lock? We must find the answer." Hastings nodded, though his expression was skeptical. "You think he's guarding a treasure, like the journal hints, or maybe he stole the medallion and hid it in that compartment?" "Non, non," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. "The medallion's theft, the vandalism, the locket, they are pieces of a puzzle, and Wren, he's not the mastermind. He is a pawn, guarding a secret for another. We must find the one who pulls the strings." The fountain's trickle haunted Poirot's thoughts as he prepared for bed, its whispers weaving through the night like a siren's call. The locket, the journal, Wren's secretive actions all pointed to a deeper truth buried in Ashburn's past. Hercule Poirot's little grey cells were alight, burning with the resolve to uncover the secret beneath the water's heart. No matter how fiercely it was guarded. Chapter 6. The air's return. Morning air in Ashburn was crisp, with a light breeze carrying the sweet scent of blooming roses through the village square. The ancient fountain, its defaced carvings bearing the cryptic quodlottet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns, stood at the heart of the village, its steady trickle a constant reminder of the mystery that gripped the community. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat gleaming in the pale sunlight, stood by the fountain, the silver locket found in Silas Wren's satchel clutched in his gloved hand. Its portrait of a young woman, identical to the Ashford girl in the vicarage photograph, was a tantalizing clue, its crescent moon engraving echoing the fountain's design. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever loyal, stood beside him, his brow furrowed with thought. "Poirot, that locket's got to be the key to all this," Hastings said, gesturing to the fountain. "Wren's hiding something, and with the stolen medallion, and that journal from the vicar, it's all connected, isn't it?" "But how?" "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with a thoughtful smile. "The locket, the journal, the medallion, they are threads in a tapestry of secrets woven long ago. But the weaver, they remain hidden in the shadows. We must seek the one who pulls the strings, and I suspect we are about to meet a new player in this game." Their conversation was interrupted by the hurried approach of Lady Beatrice Harrow, her silver hair neatly pinned, but her face alight with excitement. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, you must come to the manor at once," she exclaimed, clutching a shawl around her shoulders. "A young lady has arrived, claiming to be an Ashford. Clara Ashford, she calls herself. Descendant of the family, the village is abuzz with talk." Poirot's eyes gleamed with keen interest. "An Ashford, you say? This is most intriguing, madame. The return of a lost heir, it stirs the waters of our mystery. Let us meet this Mademoiselle Ashford without delay. The manor, a grand estate, with ivy-clad walls and polished oak floors, was alive with the hum of an impromptu tea party arranged by Lady Beatrice to welcome the newcomer. The drawing room was filled with villagers, their whispers buzzing like bees as they sipped tea and eyed the stranger at the centre of the room. Clara Ashford was a poised woman in her late 20s, with striking dark eyes and auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her tailored dress and confident demeanour spoke of refinement, yet her smile carried a hint of mystery, like a riddle waiting to be solved. Lady Beatrice introduced her warmly, her voice tinged with excitement. "Miss Clara Ashford, this is Monsieur Hercule Poirot, the renowned detective, and his friend Captain Hastings. They're investigating our little fountain mystery." Clara extended a gloved hand, her gaze steady and appraising. "A pleasure, gentlemen. I've heard of your reputation, Monsieur Poirot. I hope you can shed light on this curious affair with the fountain. It's caused quite a stir." Poirot bowed slightly, his sharp eyes studying her every gesture. "Mademoiselle, your arrival, it is most timely. The Ashford name, it carries great weight in Ashburn, a name tied to the fountain and its secrets. May I ask what brings you here, claiming such a legacy?" Clara's smile was measured, her voice calm but firm. "I've come to reclaim my family's heritage. My great-grandmother was an Ashford, sent away as a child during the family's troubles in the 1890s. I recently discovered documents proving my lineage letters, a family Bible, and a locket passed down through generations. I came to see the Ashford estate and this fountain that's suddenly come to life." The room buzzed with murmurs, the villagers exchanging glances of surprise and skepticism. Clarence Ashford, the gaunt owner of the Ashford estate, stood by the fireplace, his deep-set eyes narrowed with hostility. "Documents, you say?" he scoffed, swirling a glass of brandy. "The Ashfords vanished long ago. I'm the last of the line, and I've no record of any surviving kin. You'll need more than stories to claim what's mine." Clara's eyes flashed with defiance, but her tone remained calm. "I have proof, Mr. Ashford letters, signed by Eleanor Ashford, a family Bible with my great-grandmother's name, and a locket engraved with the Ashford crest. I'm happy to share them with you, in private." Her words were polite, but the challenge was clear. Poirot's heart quickened, though his expression remained impassive. "Most interesting, mademoiselle, this locket. It is significant, non. May I see it, s'il vous plaît?" Clara hesitated for a fraction of a second, then opened her purse and produced a silver locket, identical in design to the one found in Wren's satchel, its crescent moon and thorns glinting in the chandelier's light. Poirot opened it carefully, revealing a portrait of a young woman different from the one in Wren's locket, but strikingly similar in features, with the same dark eyes and delicate jaw. He returned it with a polite smile, his mind racing. "Family heirloom, you say? The fountain. It seems to draw such treasures, like moths to a flame." The tea party continued, with villagers peppering Clara with questions about her past. Poirot observed her closely, noting her remarkable familiarity with the fountain's history. She spoke of its construction in 1763 to celebrate the Ashfords' trade wealth, the rumours of a hidden vault, and the family's mysterious disappearance details that echoed the journal's cryptic passages with uncanny precision. Yet her manner was too polished, her answers too precise, as if carefully rehearsed. As she conversed with Miss Evelyn Grey, the historian, Poirot noticed a subtle tension. Miss Grey's sharp eyes narrowed at Clara's every word, her lips pursed in suspicion. During a lull, Clara excused herself to the garden, claiming a need for fresh air. Poirot, ever vigilant, followed discreetly with Hastings, his instincts alert. As they passed a rose-covered trellis, a folded note slipped from Clara's purse, unnoticed by her, but not by Poirot's keen eyes. He retrieved it swiftly, unfolding it to read, "The Guardian watches. Beware the water's heart." The handwriting matched the note found at the fountain, its cryptic words sending a shiver through him. "Mon Dieu, Hastings," Poirot whispered, pocketing the note. Hastings' eyes widened. "Another note, Poirot. The same hand as the first, I'll bet." This Clara Ashford, she's mixed up in it, isn't she? Perhaps, Poirot said, his voice low. Her arrival, it stirs the village like a stone cast into a pond. The locket, the note, they suggest she knows of the fountain's secrets. But is she the guardian, or another pawn in this game? Back at the manor, Poirot watched Clara's interactions with Clarence Ashford, whose hostility was palpable. "You'll not take what's mine," he muttered, loud enough for Poirot to hear as he passed her. Clara's smile remained serene, but her eyes were steely, unyielding. Poirot noted the exchange, his little grey cells humming with possibilities. As the tea party drew to a close, Poirot and Hastings walked back to the village square, the fountain's trickle a haunting echo in the evening air. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice thoughtful, "Clara Ashford's claim. It challenges Clarence's authority and stirs old wounds. The locket, the note, they are pieces of a puzzle, but she is not the whole picture. We must learn her true purpose." Hastings scratched his head, his skepticism evident. "She seems genuine, Poirot, but those notes are uncanny. Could she be working with Wren, or even Miss Grey?" "Non, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with determination. "The puzzle grows complex. The locket, the journal, the medallion, the notes all point to a truth hidden beneath the fountain. Clara Ashford, she's a new piece, but the weaver of this tapestry remains in the shadows." At their lodgings, Poirot laid out the two lockets and the two notes, their crescent moon symbols identical, their words cryptic. Clara's arrival had deepened the mystery, like a ripple spreading across Ashburn's tranquil surface. The fountain's whispers seemed louder than ever, calling to Poirot's little grey cells, which burned with the resolve to uncover the truth hidden in the water's heart. Chapter 7. The midnight Rendy's Vouse night draped Ashburn in a heavy cloak of darkness, the village steeped in a stillness broken only by the relentless trickle of the ancient fountain in the square, its defaced carvings, quadlotet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns glimmered faintly under a sliver of moonlight, whispering secrets that Hercule Poirot was determined to unravel. Clad in a dark overcoat, his Homburg hat replaced by a discreet cap to blend into the shadows, Poirot crouched behind a cluster of yew bushes, his sharp eyes fixed on the fountain's weathered stone. Captain Arthur Hastings, bundled against the chill in a thick scarf and coat, fidgeted beside him, his breath forming faint clouds in the cool night air. "Poirot, this is madness," Hastings whispered, his voice tinged with unease. "Skulking about at midnight like common thieves. What if someone catches us? We'll be the talk of the village." "Patience, mon ami," Poirot murmured, his tone calm but firm, his eyes never leaving the fountain. "The guilty, they move under cover of darkness, believing themselves unseen. The fountain, it draws them like moths to a flame." After Mademoiselle Clara Ashford's arrival, and that second note, the guardian watches, beware the waters. Heart, we must see who comes to its call. The clues weighed heavily on Poirot's mind. The journal's cryptic references to a keeper, the stolen silver medallion from the church, the lockets with their haunting portraits, and Silas Wren's furtive actions at the fountain's hidden compartment. Clara Ashford's claim to the Ashford legacy had stirred the village like a stone cast into a pond, and Poirot suspected the fountain was the stage for a deeper drama, one rooted in greed and betrayal. "We watch, Hastings," he said softly, "and we learn who fears the fountain's secrets." At 1:45, the village clock's chimes echoed faintly through the empty streets, their mournful toll blending with the fountain's trickle. A shadow moved across the square, a cloaked figure, their face obscured by a hood, approaching the fountain with cautious, deliberate steps. Poirot's heart quickened as the figure knelt at the fountain's base, their gloved hands deftly lifting a loose stone, the same spot where Poirot had found the first cryptic note. They placed a small package beneath it, glancing around furtively before retreating into the darkness, their footsteps silent on the cobblestones. Poirot darted forward, his agility surprising for a man of his fastidious nature. "Quickly, Hastings," he hissed, reaching the fountain in a few swift strides. He retrieved the package, a small leather pouch tied with twine, its weight suggesting papers within. Untying it with care, Poirot revealed several yellowed letters, their ink faded, but legible, sealed with the Ashford crest, a crescent moon entwined with thorns. He scanned the topmost letter, addressed to Eleanor Ashford, and dated 1892. It spoke of a scandal involving a stolen inheritance, a family patriarch's desperate act to hide a fortune from creditors, and a vow to protect it beneath the water's heart. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered, tucking the letters into his coat. These letters, they confirm the journal's hints, a secret fortune tied to the Ashfords, hidden by the fountain. But who left them here? And why now, when the fountain flows again? Hastings peered over his shoulder, his voice hushed with excitement. Looks like proof of Clara's story, doesn't it? An inheritance, a scandal. Maybe she's telling the truth about being an Ashford. But why leave these letters at the fountain? Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone cautious, his eyes scanning the darkened square. But the timing, it is too perfect. The arrival of Mademoiselle Clara, the vandalism. These letters, they are part of a performance. We must. These words were cut short by a piercing scream from the direction of the village green, shattering the night's silence and sending a chill through Poirot's spine. Without hesitation, he and Hastings hurried toward the source, their footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. They found Miss Evelyn Grey, the historian, crumpled near a hedgerow, her sharp features pale, and her hands trembling as she clutched her shawl. Someone was there, she gasped, pointing into the darkness. I saw a figure by the fountain, cloaked, like a phantom. I followed, but they ran this way, and I tripped trying to keep up. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind racing as he helped her to her feet. Mademoiselle Grey, you were watching the fountain as well. Most curious, did you recognize this figure, or see where they went? Miss Grey shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. It was too dark. They wore a cloak, their face hidden. I came to check the fountain after hearing rumors of nighttime meetings, but I didn't expect. Her voice trailed off, her gaze darting to the leather pouch in Poirot's hand, a flicker of curiosity crossing her face. Poirot noted her glance, but kept his expression neutral. You are unharmed, mademoiselle. Return to your home, and we shall speak tomorrow. Hastings, escort Mademoiselle Grey, s'il vous plaît. As Hastings led Miss Grey away, her steps unsteady, Poirot returned to the fountain, his mind a whirl of possibilities. The letters, the scream, Miss Grey's unexpected presence all were new pieces in the puzzle. The letter spoke of greed and betrayal, hinting at a motive for the fountain's revival, the medallion's theft, and the vandalism. But Miss Grey's story raised questions. Was she truly an innocent observer, or had she been watching for the same package? Her knowledge of the Ashfords, her reticence, suggested she knew more than she admitted. Back at their lodgings, Poirot spread the letters on a table, their contents painting a vivid picture. An Ashford patriarch, facing ruin, had hidden a fortune. To protect it, entrusting it to a guardian sworn to secrecy. The phrase beneath the water's heart appeared again, echoing the journal and the cryptic notes. Hastings, Poirot said, his voice low with intensity, the fountain, it is more than a monument. It is a vault, a hiding place for the Ashford's legacy. Someone seeks to open it or keep it sealed. Hastings rubbed his eyes, weary but intrigued. You think the figure was Wren, sneaking about again, or Clara? She's got a locket like the one you found, and now these letters turn up, just as she arrives. Non, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. The figure, they are cautious, but not alone. The scream, the letters, they are part of a performance, but for whose benefit? Miss Grey's presence, it complicates matters. We must find this guardian, and the truth they guard. The fountain's trickle haunted Poirot's thoughts as he prepared for bed, its whispers weaving through the night like a siren's call. The letters, the lockets, Miss Grey's fear, Clara's timely arrival all pointed to a secret buried deep in Ashburn's past. Poirot's little grey cells burned with resolve, determined to uncover the truth hidden beneath the water's heart, no matter how fiercely it was guarded. Chapter 8. The stolen relic's morning light struggled through a thick veil of clouds, casting a pallid, almost mournful glow over Ashburn's village square. The ancient fountain stood at its heart, its trickle a persistent whisper amidst the growing unrest that gripped the village. The defaced carvings y quodlotet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns seemed to mock the village's tranquility, their jagged scars a testament to secrets fiercely guarded. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted with impeccable precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the damp cobblestones, stood by the fountain, the leather pouch of letters from the midnight rendezvous clutched in his gloved hand. Their tales of a hidden Ashford fortune, guarded beneath the water's heart, echoed the journal's cryptic words and the mysterious notes found by the fountain. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever at his side, rubbed his hands against the morning chill, his brow furrowed with concern. "Poirot, those letters we found last night are explosive," Hastings said, his voice low as he glanced at the fountain. "Stolen inheritance. A hidden vault. This is bigger than we thought. Do you think Clara Ashford's behind it? Or maybe Silas Wren, sneaking about at midnight?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with a thoughtful smile. "The letters, they are a window to the past, revealing greed and betrayal. But the present, it holds the key to our mystery. We must seek the one who fears the fountain's truth, and I suspect they are close." Their discussion was interrupted by a commotion near the village hall. Lady Beatrice Harrow hurried toward them, her silver hair slightly askew and her face pale with alarm. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, you must come quickly," she exclaimed, clutching a shawl around her shoulders. "The silver medallion, the one tied to the Ashfords, and the fountain, it's been stolen from the village museum." Poirot's eyes gleamed with keen interest, his mind already racing. "The medallion, stolen. This is most significant, madame. Lead us to the scene at once, s'il vous plaît." The village museum, a modest building adjacent to the church, was a quiet repository of Ashburn's history, its shelves lined with dusty artifacts, faded photographs, and handwritten ledgers. Inside, a small crowd of villagers had gathered, their murmurs filled with indignation and fear. The curator, Mr. Edward Lyle, a bespectacled man with a nervous demeanour, stood by an empty display case, wringing his hands as if they could undo the theft. "It was here yesterday," he said, his voice trembling with distress. "A silver medallion, engraved with the Ashford crescent moon entwined with thorns. It's been in the museum for decades, a gift from the family before they vanished." Poirot knelt by the case, his gloved fingers tracing the lock, which was intact, its surface unmarred by scratches or force. "No signs of forced entry," he murmured, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. "The thief, they had a key or great skill with locks. Monsieur Lyle, who has access to this case?" Lyle hesitated, his eyes darting to the crowd of villagers, who watched with rapt attention. "Only myself and Reverend Thomas have keys," he said. "But there's been talk of a local lad, Tommy Reed, causing trouble. He's been seen loitering near the museum, always up to no good." Poirot's gaze sharpened, his mind cataloguing the information. "This Tommy Reed, he's known for mischief. We shall speak with him. But first, the scene, it tells its own story." He inspected the room with meticulous care, noting the dust on the floor, undisturbed except for a faint scuff mark. Near the case, his eyes caught on a single rose petal, its deep red hue out of place among the museum's sparse decor. "This petal," he said, holding it up to the light, "it is not from the museum's garden. It suggests the thief came from elsewhere, perhaps the manor gardens, where roses abound." Hastings frowned, his excitement palpable. "The manor. That's where Clara Ashford's staying with Lady Beatrice. You think she's involved, Poirot?" Non, Hastings," Poirot said, pocketing the petal with care. We assume nothing, but the medallion's theft, it is linked to the Whodunit's crest, its timing. We must return there, for the fountain, it holds the answers. They made their way to the square, where the fountain's trickle seemed louder in the quiet morning. Recalling Silas Wren's hidden compartment, Poirot knelt at the fountain's base, his gloved fingers deftly prying open the panel. Inside, tucked against the damp stone, was a small, rolled parchment, a map, crudely drawn, but detailed, showing the fountain and a network of tunnels beneath it. A mark labelled Water's Heart was circled, with the crescent moon symbol beside it. Poirot's heart quickened, his eyes gleaming with triumph. Mon Dieu, a map. It points to a chamber beneath the fountain, where the Ashford's secrets lie. Hastings peered at the map, his voice tinged with awe. A hidden chamber. That must be where the fortune is, the one the letters mentioned. But who hid this map? Wren, sneaking about again. Perhaps, Poirot said, folding the map carefully and tucking it into his coat. But the thief, they may have left it to mislead us. The medallion, the map, the letters, they are pieces of a puzzle, but the picture is not yet clear. They sought out Tommy Reed, a lanky youth with a sullen demeanour, who was lounging near the village green. I ain't been near the museum, he protested when questioned, his eyes darting nervously. I don't care about no medallion. Poirot noted his fear, but found no evidence linking him to the theft. The rose petal, however, pointed elsewhere toward the manor, where Clara Ashford, Lady Beatrice, and others had access to the lush gardens. As they left the museum, Poirot's mind raced, weaving together the clues. The medallion's theft was no coincidence. It was tied to the fountain's revival, the vandalism, and the letters' revelations of a hidden fortune. Hastings, he said, his voice low with intensity, the thief seeks to control the fountain's secrets, but they have made a mistake. The map, it is a clue they did not intend to leave, or perhaps a lure to mislead us, back at their lodgings. Poirot spread the map on a table, its lines echoing the journal's cryptic phrases and the letters hints of a vault beneath the Water's Heart. The fountain was more than a monument, it was a gateway to the Ashfords' hidden legacy, guarded by a cunning mind. The rose petal, the intact lock, the map all suggested a perpetrator close to the heart of Ashburn's secrets, someone with access and motive. Poirot's little grey cells hummed with anticipation, determined to uncover the truth hidden beneath the Water's Heart, no matter how cleverly it was concealed. Chapter 9. The puzzle of the map. Morning in Ashburn dawned with a restless energy. The village square bathed in a pale, almost ghostly light that did little to dispel the shadows clinging to the ancient fountain. Its trickle, relentless and haunting, underscored the mystery that gripped the village. Its defaced carvings, quadlotet, revolobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns bearing silent witness to secrets long buried beneath the cobblestones. Hercule Poirot, his humbug hat tilted with impeccable precision, sat at a small table in their modest lodgings, the crude map found in the fountain's hidden compartment spread before him. Its lines, marked with the cryptic Water's Heart and adorned with the crescent moon symbol, promised answers to the Ashford legacy that had eluded the village for generations. Captain Arthur Hastings, peering over his shoulder, rubbed his eyes, still weary from the midnight rendezvous and the scream that had shattered the night. Poirot, this map's a godsend, Hastings said, his voice tinged with excitement as he traced a finger along the parchment's rough edges. A chamber beneath the fountain. It's got to be where the Ashford fortune's hidden, the one the letters and journal keep hinting at. But who left it there? Silas Wren, sneaking about again? Or Clara Ashford, with her convenient arrival? Non, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with a thoughtful smile as he adjusted his pince-nez. The map, it is a clue, but perhaps a trap. Its presence in the fountain, so easily found after the medallion's theft, suggests a mind that wishes to lead or mislead. We must tread carefully, for the Guardian watches. As the note warned, the map depicted a network of tunnels beneath the village, their paths converging at a point marked Water's Heart, adorned with the crescent moon symbol that echoed. The fountain's carvings and the lockets. Poirot's little grey cells hummed as he traced the lines, connecting them to the journal's references to a keeper. The letters talk of a hidden vault, and the stolen medallion's crescent, moon crest, the vandalism, the lockets, and Miss Evelyn Grey's nervous presence at the fountain all pointed to a secret guarded with fierce determination. "We must explore this chamber," Poirot said, folding the map with care, "but we need assistance. Mademoiselle Grey, her knowledge of Ashburn's history. It may guide us through these shadows." They found Miss Grey at the village hall, poring over her manuscripts with a distracted air, her sharp features drawn with tension. Her eyes flickered with unease as Poirot approached, the map in hand. "Mademoiselle," he said, his tone polite, but probing, "this map, found in the fountain, points to a chamber beneath it, marked Water's Heart. You know the Ashfords' history. Will you join us to explore this hidden place?" Miss Grey hesitated, her fingers tightening on a quill pen. "A chamber," she said, her voice wavering. "I've read of old tunnels beneath Ashburn, used by the Ashfords for storage or escape during troubled times, smugglers' routes, some say, from their trading days. But they're dangerous, unstable, forgotten. Are you certain this is wise, Monsieur Poirot?" "Certain, Mademoiselle," Poirot said, his tone firm, his eyes gleaming with resolve. "The fountain's secrets, they call to Hercule Poirot, and I answer. Your knowledge. It will ensure we do not lose our way." Miss Grey's reluctance was palpable, but she nodded, gathering her shawl. By late afternoon, they stood at the fountain's base, armed with lanterns, a crowbar, and a coil of rope. Poirot located a concealed grate near the hidden compartment, its rusted bars yielding to their combined efforts with a groan of protest. A damp, narrow passage descended into darkness, its walls slick with moss, and the air heavy with the scent of earth and time. Poirot led the way, his lantern casting eerie shadows that danced on the stone. Hastings followed, his steps cautious, while Miss Grey brought up the rear, her nervous breathing echoing in the confined space. The tunnel twisted downward, opening into a small chamber, its stone walls carved with faded symbols, crescent moons, entwined with thorns, their lines barely visible in the lantern's glow. In the center stood a rusted iron chest, its lid engraved with the Ashford crest, its presence a silent promise of the fortune hinted at in the letters. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his heart quickening. "The Water's Heart. It is here, beneath the fountain." Hastings, his excitement barely contained, reached for the chest. "This must be it, Poirot, the Ashford treasure." But as his fingers brushed the lid, a faint click echoed, and the floor shifted beneath them. Poirot yanked him back just as a slab of stone dropped, revealing a spiked pit below, its jagged points glinting menacingly. Miss Grey gasped, clutching her lantern as it flickered. "A trap," she cried, her voice trembling. "Someone didn't want this found." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his voice calm despite the near disaster. "Oui, Mademoiselle, the trap, it confirms the treasure's existence and its guardian's fear. Someone has maintained this mechanism, for it is not ancient." He examined the chest, finding it locked but intact, its contents a mystery for now. The trap's precision suggested recent work, not a relic of the 1890s. They retreated to the surface, shaken but unharmed, the dank air clinging to their clothes. Miss Grey's face was pale, her hands trembling as she clutched her shawl. "This is madness," she said, her voice sharp with fear. "Who would set such a trap? It's diabolical." "Someone who knows the fountain's secret and fears its discovery," Poirot replied, his tone measured. "The map, it was left to lure treasure hunters or to warn them away. We must reconsider its origin, Wren, Clara, or another." Hastings frowned, brushing dirt from his coat. "You think it's a decoy, but it led us right to the chamber. If that's not the treasure, what is?" "Perhaps, Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing as he glanced at the fountain. But the trap, it suggests a mind that anticipates. Discovery, the guardian, they are cunning. And they are close. Back at their lodgings, Poirot spread the map on the table. Its lines now suspect in the light of the trap. The chest, the symbols, the near-fatal pit all confirmed the fountain's role as a vault for the Ashford legacy. But the trap's modernity pointed to a living guardian, one who watched and waited. The guardian, Poirot murmured, they are among us, and they watch. The fountain's trickle haunted his thoughts, its secrets deeper than the chamber below. Poirot's little grey cells burned with resolve, determined to outwit the guardian hiding in Ashburn's shadows, no matter how deadly their defences. Chapter 10. Betrayal in the Villa. The late afternoon sun cast long, jagged shadows across Ashburn's village square, where the ancient fountain stood as a silent sentinel, its trickle a relentless whisper amidst the mounting tension that gripped the village. The defaced carvings Quadlotet, Revolobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns seemed to pulse with secrets, their scars a testament to the danger lurking beneath the village's tranquil surface. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg, had tilted with impeccable precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the damp cobblestones, stood outside the village hall, the map to the water's heart, and the memory of the spike trap in the underground chamber fresh in his mind. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever at his side, adjusted his tie, his face etched with concern as he glanced toward the hall, where villagers were gathering. Poirot, that trap in the chamber was no joke, Hastings said, his voice low with unease. Someone's willing to kill to keep that fortune hidden. Clara Ashford, with her timely arrival, Silas Wren, skulking about at night. Or someone we haven't suspected yet. Patience, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching, with a thoughtful smile as he adjusted his pince-nez. The trap, it confirms the stakes are high. Lives and legacies are at play. The letters, the map, the stolen medallion, the lockets, they point to a guardian who watches closely, hidden among us. Tonight's village meeting, it will reveal more, for emotions, they loosen tongues and betray secrets. Lady Beatrice Harrow had called an urgent meeting in the village hall to address the growing unrest, the fountain's mysterious revival, the vandalism, the stolen medallion, and now the rumours of a hidden chamber beneath the square, whispered about after Poirot's exploration. The hall was packed, its wooden benches filled with villagers whose murmurs formed a cacophony of fear, suspicion, and old grudges. The air was thick with anticipation, the gaslight casting flickering shadows on the walls. Poirot and Hastings took seats near the front, where Lady Beatrice stood, her silver hair gleaming under the light, her face strained but resolute. We cannot ignore these events, Lady Beatrice began, her voice steady despite the tension in her eyes. The fountain's revival, the vandalism, the theft of the Ashford medallion, and now tales of a hidden chamber. Someone among us knows more than they admit. We must unite to find the truth, for Ashburn's peace depends on it. The room erupted in chaos, voices rising like a storm. Henry Baxter, the ruddy-faced farmer, leapt to his feet, pointing a thick finger at Silas Wren, who sat sullenly in a corner, his weathered hands clenched. "It's Wren," Baxter shouted, his voice booming. "He's always at that fountain, tampering with it. I bet he stole the medallion to sell it for a tidy profit." Wren shot up, his fists clenched, his scowl fierce. "You've no proof." "Baxter, I keep the grounds, nothing more. Accuse me again, and you'll regret it." His voice was a growl, his eyes darting to the door as if plotting an escape. Clara Ashford, seated near the front in her tailored dress, rose with a calm that contrasted the room's turmoil. Her dark eyes scanned the crowd, her auburn hair catching the light. "Let's not forget the Ashford legacy," she said, her voice cutting through the din like a blade. "I've proof of my lineage letters, a Bible, a locket, but someone, perhaps Mr. Clarence Ashford, wants to keep the fountain's secrets buried to protect his claim to the estate." Clarence Ashford, gaunt and brooding, stood by a window, his deep-set eyes blazing with anger. He slammed his fist on a nearby table, the sound echoing. "You're a fraud, Clara," he roared. "The estate's mine, legally mine. I'll not have my name dragged through the mud by a stranger with forged papers." The accusations flew like sparks, igniting old grudges and new suspicions. Villagers shouted over one another, pointing fingers at Wren, Clara, even Reverend Thomas, whose nervous fidgeting did little to quell the tension. Poirot watched, his sharp eyes noting every gesture, every glance, his mind cataloguing the emotions that betrayed hidden truths. Then, with a subtle clearing of his throat, he stood, his small stature commanding instant silence, his presence as formidable as any giant. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice calm but resonant, cutting through the chaos like a beacon. "The fountain, it is the heart of this mystery, but it is your secrets that fuel it. Monsieur Clarence Ashford, I have a question. You claim the estate as the sole heir, yet I have examined the county records, and there is a discrepancy. The deed to the Ashford estate, it is dated 1901, yet you claim descent from a branch that vanished in 1895. How do you explain this inconsistency?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Clarence. His face paled, his jaw tightening as he gripped the table's edge. "You're mistaken, Poirot," he said, his voice strained, almost a hiss. "The records are clear. I inherited legally, and I'll not have my rights questioned by a foreigner." Poirot's eyes gleamed, undeterred. "Non, monsieur. The records, they do not lie, but they can be altered. The dates, they do not align, suggesting someone, perhaps you, has falsified them to secure your claim. Why, I ask, would you need to do such a thing?" Gasps rippled through the crowd, the air thick with shock. Before Clarence could respond, a new voice broke the silence. Mr. Edward Lyle, the museum curator, his bespectacled face flushed with agitation as he stepped forward. Trembling, "He's right," Lyle exclaimed, his voice cracking. "I helped Clarence with the estate papers years ago, but he pressured me to backdate them. I kept quiet out of loyalty, but no more. There's a ledger in my office, proof of payments, to a forger in London, tied to the fountain's restoration in 1900. I should have spoken sooner." The hall erupted again, villagers shouting accusations, some at Clarence, others at Lyle for his silence. Clarence's eyes darted to the door, his face a mask of fury and fear, but Poirot's steady gaze held him in place. "Monsieur Lyle," Poirot said, his tone measured, "this ledger, it is most significant. It suggests the fountain's restoration was no mere repair, it was a cover for something deeper, perhaps to hide the chamber we found, the water's heart." Lyle nodded, his hands shaking. "I found plans in the museum archives, blueprints for the fountain, showing a vault beneath it. Clarence wanted it sealed, said it was to protect the village from treasure hunters. But I think he wanted to keep it for himself." Poirot's mind raced, connecting the ledger to the map, the trap, and the letter's revelations of a hidden fortune. "The fountain's restoration," he murmured. "It was to conceal the water's heart, not preserve it. Monsieur Clarence, what do you hide?" Clarence stood, his face a mask of defiance. "You've no proof, Poirot. This is slander, and I'll not stand for it." He stormed out, slamming the door, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Hastings leaned close to Poirot, his voice hushed with excitement. "Good Lord, Poirot, you've rattled him. Lyle's ledger, could it lead us to the fortune, or prove Clara's claim?" "Perhaps, Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. "The ledger, it is a new thread in our tapestry, the fountain's secrets, they are guarded by betrayal, and Clarence, he's not alone in this deception." As the meeting dispersed, villagers muttering among themselves, Poirot's thoughts churned like the fountain's waters. The ledger, the map, the trap, the lockets all pointed to a conspiracy rooted in the Ashford legacy, a secret worth killing for. The fountain's trickle seemed louder in the evening air, its whispers urging him to uncover the truth hidden beneath the water's heart. No matter how deeply betrayal ran in Ashburn's veins, Poirot's little grey cells burned with resolve, determined to expose the Guardian and their web of deceit. Chapter 11. The Guardian revealed. Evening sky over Ashburn was a tapestry of deepening indigo, the village square shrouded in a quiet that belied the storm of secrets brewing beneath its tranquil surface. The ancient fountain stood at its heart, its trickle a persistent murmur that seemed to whisper of betrayal and hidden truths. Its defaced carvings quadlotet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns glimmered faintly under the gaslights, their scars a testament to the danger lurking in Ashburn's shadows. Hercule Poirot, his homburg hat tilted with impeccable precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the evening dew, walked briskly toward the village museum, the weight of Mr. Edward Lyle's confession from the village meeting heavy on his mind. The ledger, with its proof of Clarence Ashford's forged documents and the fountain's suspicious restoration, promised to unravel the conspiracy at the heart of the mystery. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever at his side, matched his pace, his face set with determination, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Poirot, if that ledger proves Clarence faked his claim to the estate, it's due's a game-changer, Hastings said, his voice low as they approached the museum's modest stone facade. It could blow this whole mystery wide open. But who's the Guardian the notes keep mentioning? Silas Wren, skulking about the fountain, Clara Ashford, with her convenient arrival, or someone else pulling the strings from the shadows? Patience, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with a thoughtful smile as he adjusted his pince-nez. The ledger, it is a key to the truth, but the Guardian, they guard the water's heart with cunning and desperation. Tonight, we shall find answers, for Hercule Poirot does not rest until the puzzle is solved. At the museum, Mr. Edward Lyle awaited them in his cluttered office, his bespectacled face pale under the dim light of a single lantern. His hands trembled as he unlocked a cabinet and retrieved a leather-bound ledger. Its pages yellowed, but intact. Here it is, Lyle said, his voice quivering with nerves. Payments to a London forger, dated 1900, for services rendered, and notes about the fountain's restoration. Clarence insisted it was to stabilize the structure, but the sums, they're far too large for simple repairs, thousands of pounds. Monsieur Poirot. Poirot pored over the ledger with meticulous care, his sharp eyes scanning the meticulous entries. Several payments to a J. Harrow for consulting services caught his attention, alongside a cryptic note in a hurried scrawl. Seal the vault, protect the heart, mon Dieu, he murmured, his heart quickening. The restoration was a ruse to conceal the chamber we found, not to repair it. And this J. Harrow, perhaps a relation to Our Lady Beatrice. Lyle nodded, his glasses slipping down his nose. Her late uncle, James Harrow. He was a contractor, oversaw the fountain's restoration in 1900. I thought it odd at the time, but Clarence was adamant it was necessary to preserve the village's heritage. Poirot's mind raced, connecting the ledger's revelations to the map's depiction of the water's heart, the trap in the underground chamber, and the letter's tales of a hidden Ashford fortune. The Guardian, they ensured the vault remained hidden during the restoration, he said. We must speak to Monsieur Silas Rennie's actions at the fountain, his locket. They betray knowledge of this secret. They found Wren near the village green, repairing a wooden fence under the fading light, his burly frame tense as he drove nails with unnecessary force. His weathered face hardened as Poirot approached, his eyes narrowing under a worn cap. What now, Poirot? He growled, gripping the hammer tightly. I've had enough of your questions, poking into things best left alone, Monsieur Wren, Poirot said, his tone calm but unyielding, like a blade cloaked in silk. The ledger, it reveals the fountain's restoration, was a cover to hide a vault the water's heart. You, who tend its grounds, know more than you admit. The locket you hid, the compartment, the map. Why do you guard the fountain's secrets? Wren's face darkened, his knuckles whitening on the hammer's handle. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the distant trickle of the fountain, its sound a haunting echo of the mystery. Then, with a resigned sigh, Wren dropped the hammer to the ground, its thud muffled by the grass. "All right, Poirot," he said, his voice low and weary. "I'm the guardian, or was. My father served the Ashfords, swore an oath to protect their secret, a fortune hidden beneath the fountain, meant for the true heir. When it started flowing again, I panicked. Someone's after it, and I've been keeping watch, checking the compartment to ensure it's safe." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his mind weaving the threads together. "The vandalism, the warning carvings, was it you, protecting the vault?" Wren shook his head, his scowl softening with fear. "Not the trap in the chamber. I carved the warning, to scare folks off, but the trap, someone else set it. They knew I'd been checking the compartment, watching me." Before Poirot could press further, a folded note slipped from Wren's pocket, fluttering to the ground. Poirot retrieved it swiftly, his gloved fingers unfolding it to reveal, "The heart must stay buried, or blood will flow." The handwriting matched the previous notes found at the fountain, its warning chilling in the evening air. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his heart quickening. "The guardian is watched, and threatened. By whom, Monsieur Wren?" Wren's face paled, his eyes darting to the shadows. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely audible. "I found that note in my shed a week ago, left with no name. I've been trying to protect the vaults, but I'm no match for them. They're ruthless." Poirot pocketed the note, his mind racing like a finely tuned machine. "Monsieur Wren, you must trust Hercule Poirot. The vault, it will be uncovered, but not by thieves. Return to your home and speak to no one until I call for you." Wren nodded, his shoulders sagging as he shuffled away, a defeated man carrying the weight of generations. Poirot turned to Hastings, his voice low with intensity. "The guardian is revealed, but the puppet master remains in the shadows. This note, it is a threat to silence Wren and perhaps us, if we draw too close." Hastings' eyes widened, his excitement tempered by unease. "Someone's on to Wren, but who? Clarence, with his forged documents, Clara, with her locket and claims, or someone we haven't suspected? The truth, it is near," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. "The ledger, the map, the notes, they form a web of deceit, and the fountain is its center. Back at their lodgings, Poirot laid out the ledger, the map, the lockets, and the notes, their connections forming a complex tapestry of betrayal. The fountain's treacle haunted his thoughts, its secrets closer to revelation, but guarded by a deadly hand. The guardian was unmasked, but the true orchestrator of Ashburn's mystery remained hidden, their threats echoing in the night. Poirot's little grey cells burned with resolve, determined to unmask the one who threatened the village's peace and uncover the truth beneath the water's heart. Chapter 12. The water's hearth moon hung low over Ashburn, casting a silvery, almost ethereal glow across the village square where the ancient fountain stood as a silent guardian of secrets. Its trickle, relentless and haunting, wove a melody through the stillness of the night. Its defaced carvings echoed lotet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns seeming to pulse with the weight of truths long buried. Hercule Poirot, clad in a dark overcoat to blend into the shadows, his usual Homburg hat replaced by a discreet cap, stood by the fountain, the map to the water's heart, and Silas Wren's confession as the guardian burning in his mind. The ledger, the lockets, the threatening notes all pointed to a conspiracy rooted in the Ashford legacy. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever his loyal companion, stood beside him, clutching a lantern, his face taut with anticipation and a hint of trepidation. "Poirot, are you sure about going back down there?" Hastings whispered, his breath forming faint clouds in the chilly night air. "That spike trap nearly did us in last time. If Wren's not the only one guarding the vault, we're walking into danger, maybe a bullet this time." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice calm but resolute, his sharp eyes scanning the fountain's base. The trap. It was a warning, but the truth lies beneath the fountain, in the water's heart. We must return to the chamber, and Mademoiselle Evelyn Grey, her knowledge of Ashburn's history, will guide us through its shadows. Miss Grey had agreed, albeit reluctantly, to join them. Her expertise on the Ashfords crucial for navigating the tunnels and deciphering any hidden clues. She arrived at the square, her sharp features pale under the moonlight, her satchel of tools slung over her shoulder. "Monsieur Poirot, this is reckless," she said, her voice low and edged with unease. "The chamber's dangerous, unstable. But if you're determined to uncover the fountain's secrets, I'll help decipher any inscriptions or artifacts we find." They approached the fountain's concealed grate, its rusted bars hidden beneath a layer of moss. Poirot pried it open, with a crowbar from Miss Grey's satchel, the metal groaning in protest. The damp, narrow passage descended into darkness, its walls slick with moss, and the air heavy with the scent of earth and time. Poirot led the way, his lantern casting flickering shadows that danced like spectres on the stone. Hastings followed, his steps cautious, while Miss Grey brought up the rear, her nervous breathing echoing in the confined space. The tunnel opened into the familiar chamber, its stone walls carved with faded crescent moons and thorns, their lines barely visible in the lantern's glow. The rusted iron chest stood in the center, its Ashford crest glinting ominously. Mindful of the previous trap, Poirot tested the floor with a stick, finding it stable. He knelt by the chest, examining its lacquer-complex mechanism, eyeing a key shaped like the crescent moon. "The medallion," he murmured, his heart quickening. "It is the key, stolen to prevent this moment." Using a set of lock-picking tools from Miss Grey's satchel, Poirot worked with meticulous care, his gloved fingers deftly coaxing the mechanism. The lock clicked, and the lid creaked open, revealing a velvet-lined interior. Inside lay a silver chalice, its surface engraved with the crescent moon and thorns, and a faded letter addressed to the Guardian. Poirot unfolded it, reading aloud, "The Ashford legacy lies not in gold, but in truth. Protect it, for revelation brings ruin." Miss Grey gasped, her eyes wide as she leaned closer. "A chalice, it's a ceremonial relic, lightly used in the Ashfords' trade ceremonies. But what truth could bring ruin? There's no gold here, just this." Before Poirot could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the tunnel, sharp and deliberate. Clarence Ashford emerged from the darkness, his gaunt face twisted with fury, a revolver gleaming in his hand. "You've gone too far, Poirot," he snarled, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "That chalice belongs to me, as does the estate. I forged the deeds to secure my claim, but I'll not let you ruin me." Poirot stood, his posture calm, his eyes unflinching despite the weapon. "Monsieur Clarence, your anger, it betrays you. The ledger, the letters, the map, they reveal your deception. You are no Ashford. You restored the fountain to seal the vault, fearing the true heir Clara. Ashford and the truth this chalice holds." Clarence's eyes widened, his hand trembling on the revolver. Before he could speak, Miss Grey stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "No, Monsieur Poirot. Clarence is a fraud, but I am the true guardian. My family served the Ashfords for generations, sworn to protect their secret. The chalice holds proof of a scandalous contract exposing the Ashfords' illicit trade deals, hidden to save their name. I set the trap to protect it, not gold." Poirot's eyes gleamed, the pieces falling into place. "Mademoiselle, you carved the warnings, sent the notes, the Guardian watches. The heart must stay buried. But why threaten Monsieur Wren?" Miss Grey's tears glistened in the lantern's light. To keep him silent. He was loyal, but weak, prone to talking. "I feared he'd betray the secret to treasure hunters or Clara." Clarence lunged, aiming for the chalice, but Hastings tackled him, the revolver skittering across the floor. As they restrained him, Poirot pocketed the chalice and letter, his voice steady. "The truth, It is revealed. The fountain's heart holds not treasure, but shame, guarded by betrayal and fear. They emerged into the night. The fountains trickle softer now, its secrets laid bare. Clarence was detained by the local constable, and Miss Grey confessed fully, her duty as guardian outweighing her fear of exposure. The chalice and letter were secured, evidence of the Ashfords' past and the conspiracy to hide it. Poirot's little grey cells rested, the puzzle solved, but the village's wounds torn open by greed and deceit would take time to heal. The fountain, no longer a mystery, stood as a reminder of truths uncovered and betrayals laid bare. Chapter 13. The fountain's legacy. Morning sun-bathed Ashburn's village square in a gentle golden light, casting a warm glow over the ancient fountain at its heart. Its trickle, once a haunting reminder of secrets, now seemed to sing of resolution. Its defaced carvings, quadlotet, revelobiter, and the crescent moon entwined with thorns softened by the promise of truth revealed. The village, though still reeling from the revelations of betrayal and deceit, seemed to exhale, its burdens lifted at last. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted with impeccable precision, and his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the morning dew, stood before the fountain, the silver chalice and the guardian's letter in his possession, their truths ready to be unveiled to Ashburn's people. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever his loyal companion, adjusted his scarf against the crisp air, his face a mix of relief and curiosity as he gazed at the fountain. "Poirot, you've done it again," Hastings said, his voice warm with admiration, as he clapped a hand on Poirot's shoulder. "The chalice, Miss Grey's confession, Clarence's arrest, it's all come together like a perfect puzzle. But how will you tie it all up for the village? They're still on edge, you know." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with a faint, satisfied smile as he adjusted his pince-nez. "The little grey cells, they have worked tirelessly to unravel this tapestry of deceit. Today, we gather the players in the village hall to reveal the truth of the fountain's legacy, so Ashburn may find peace and move forward." Poirot had summoned the key figures to the village hall for a final reckoning: Clara Ashford, Silas Wren, Lady Beatrice Harrow, Reverend Thomas, Henry Baxter, and Mr. Edward Lyle. The hall was filled with villagers, their benches packed, the air thick with anticipation and the lingering weight of suspicion. The gaslights cast a warm glow, but the tension was palpable, as if the fountain's secrets still lingered in the room. Poirot stood at the front, his small stature commanding attention, the silver chalice gleaming on a table beside him, its crescent moon and thorns engraving catching the light like a beacon. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, cutting through the murmurs like a blade through silk. "The fountain, it has spoken, and its secrets are revealed." The mystery began with its sudden flow, a sign that stirred old fears and awakened hidden truths. The vandalism, the stolen medallion, the hidden chamber, the threatening notes, they were threads in a web spun by greed, shame, and betrayal. He held up the chalice, its silver surface reflecting the light. "This relic, found in the chamber beneath the fountain, holds the truth of the Ashford legacy, not a fortune in gold, as rumoured, but a contract exposing illicit trade deals from the 1890s, a scandal that would have ruined the Ashford name. The fountain was built to conceal this truth, its waters heart a vault guarded by a keeper sworn to secrecy." Poirot turned to Silas Wren, who sat in a corner, his weathered face sombre, his hands clasped tightly. "Monsieur Wren, you were the guardian, sworn by your father to protect the Ashford secret. You carved warnings on the fountain to deter intruders, fearing the vault's discovery." Wren nodded, his voice gruff but honest. "I tried to keep the vow, Poirot. My father served the Ashfords, and I couldn't let the secret out. But someone was watching me, threatening me to stay silent." Poirot's gaze shifted to Miss Evelyn Grey, who sat pale and resolute, her sharp features softened by resignation. "Mademoiselle Grey, you were the true guardian. Your family tasked 4 generations with hiding the chalice. You set the spite, Trap in the chamber, sent the notes, the guardian watches, the heart must stay buried, to protect the Ashford's shame, fearing its exposure would destroy the village's pride and unity. Miss Grey's eyes glistened with tears, her voice trembling but firm. I did it for Ashburn, Monsieur Poirot. The scandal would have torn us apart, turned neighbour against neighbour. I sent the notes to keep Wren in line. He was loyal, but weak, prone to talking. Poirot then addressed the absent Clarence Ashford, whose arrest had sent ripples through the village. Monsieur Clarence, he was no Ashford. The ledger revealed his forged documents, crafted to claim the estate. He used the 1900 restoration, overseen by James Harrow, to seal the vaults, ensuring the chalice and its scandal remained hidden. His greed drove him to steal the medallion, the key to the chest, to prevent its opening. Clara Ashford, her dark eyes steady and her auburn hair catching the light, spoke up, her voice calm but resolute. And my claim, Monsieur Poirot, my locket, my documents, they prove I'm an Ashford. What does this mean for me? Oui, Mademoiselle, Poirot said, his tone gentle but firm. Your lineage is true, verified by the family Bible and letters. Your arrival stirred Clarence's fear and Miss Grey's desperation, as they sought to protect their secrets. The notes, the vandalism, they were acts to either expose or conceal the truth, depending on the hand that wielded them. Poirot held up the ledger, the map, and the notes, their connections now clear. The ledger revealed Clarence's forgery, the map led to the chamber, and the letters told of a fortune that was, in truth, a scandal. The fountain's revival, perhaps a natural shift in the underground springs, was the catalyst that brought these truths to light, forcing the guardians to act. Lady Beatrice Harrow, her face softened by relief, stood and asked, "And now, Monsieur Poirot, what becomes of Ashburn? The chalice, the scandal, how do we move forward?" Poirot's eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. "The truth, it heals, Madame. The chalice will be preserved in the museum. Its scandal a lesson, not a curse. Mademoiselle Clara, as the true heir, may claim her heritage, restoring the Ashford name. The fountain, it will flow in peace, no longer a symbol of fear." The villagers murmured, some with relief, others with lingering unease, but the weight of the mystery had lifted. As the meeting dispersed, Poirot and Hastings walked back to the square. The fountain's trickle now a gentle, almost soothing sound. "A fine job, Poirot," Hastings said, his voice warm. "You've saved Ashburn from its past, given them a chance to heal." "Non, Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming as he gazed at the fountain. "The little grey cells, they merely reveal what was hidden. The fountain's legacy, it is truth, and truth brings peace, even when it stings." The village settled into a tentative calm, the wounds of betrayal and greed beginning to mend. The fountain, no longer a mystery, stood as a reminder of truths uncovered and a legacy reclaimed. Poirot's work was done, his little grey cells at rest, but the fountain's gentle trickle lingered in his thoughts, a testament to the power of truth to heal a village's heart.